In 2007, the DCSF carried out a major piece of qualitative research on pupil progression, asking Key Stage 2 and 3 pupils who were not achieving their potential what they thought was holding them back.
Mainly, they're pupils who are well behaved, they're perfectly ordinary pupils, they have good skills, but they don't get the point of education. They feel that education is something that's done to them and not something that they do for themselves.
In this programme, we look at what the research revealed about those pupils who, despite getting level 4 in maths at the end of Key Stage 2, failed to progress to level 5 by the end of Key Stage 3. What's slowing their progress, and what can be done to help them? DCSF advisor Barbara Miller was part of the research team and talked to children nationally to identify common characteristics.
We spent most of the time talking to the children themselves to get their perceptions of mathematics, how they felt about learning mathematics, the way that they saw mathematics when they were being taught in school. And we also talked to their teachers about what they saw them as being like in class.
All right, can you sit where there are the brown and the white envelopes?
Staunton Community Sports College, near Portsmouth, was one of the schools involved in the research. Their maths department identifies and prioritises their slower-moving pupils to keep them on track.
The fact that you have students who are coming to lessons, they're here and they're behaving, but they're still not making progress, and that's a problem. And therefore we need to find ways of addressing that.
They tend to play safe when they're learning mathematics. They tend to have a comfort zone, which is about them trying to find a way of getting an answer rather than really having a feel for developing understanding about the mathematics.
Because I know that I'm not very good at maths, I suppose I don't try enough that I should.
Sometimes I prefer to keep quiet rather than keep them nagging at mess.
And they're quite happy to use a method and maybe just have 10 questions, and once they've done the first 2, then the next 8 all follow just using the method. What we want to do is to actually get them involved in what they're doing. I'd like you to open up the white envelope, please, and I would like to see if you can sort out the puzzle A.
Just buys 2 coconuts and a ½ kilogram bananas.
Okay.
A kilogram of bananas is
£1.20, but you have to half it
to get half a kilogram.
If you want to promote better understanding, then you really have to engage with it, and that's what we're trying to do, promote engagement with the subject, not just some sort of basic functional ability to get through a lesson. In a murder investigation, where does all the most important thinking go on at the start of an investigation?
On the evidence.
On the evidence, and the evidence tends to be where the body is. So
they need to feel more of a challenge in what they're doing, in order also to make more sense of the mathematics that they're exploring.
when did they discover the body?
at 7 o'clock.
Can you tell me then?
He was killed at 7:66. 4.
They need to work more in pairs, talk more about the way that they're thinking mathematically.
2 p.m. and 3:30.
Yeah, so that one could be a suspect. That's suspect.
That could be a suspect. That could be a suspect.
They perhaps need more open approaches, not to be hung up on doing it the right way, but experimenting and trying different ways to see whether they work.
It says normal body temperature is 38 degrees. The body would have cooled at rate of 2 per hour. Yeah. So the body must have been there 4 hours. So the murder must have happened at 3 p.m.
Brilliant. So that was quite a lot, lots of steps you went through, and you put all that information together. All right, and we call that deduction.
What we're talking about here is, I suppose, the difference between teaching maths and good education, which actually is about developing a whole range of skills. And actually maths, like any other subject, is a context for developing broad educational skills, such as group work, independent thinking, independent learning, the ability to process information, to make judgments, come up with an answer that may not be the right answer, but is based on the evidence that you've got, is a good answer. And I think you've got to build in those into your maths curriculum to make it more relevant for the students. And it's not really just about doing sums, which clearly it isn't.
I find remembering the maths words quite challenging because there's you're thinking of different words compared to the maths vocabulary.
I found mathematical words quite hard sometimes because I don't know what the right word is to say to the question or what about it is. I could only just say the normal word, but some people might say the other word.
So 105 divided by 7 will be 15 because it's the other way round or the... What do we call the other way round? The opposite. What's the maths term? Come on, year 8s know it. Inverse. Thank you. With the maths vocabulary, they do forget from lesson to lesson because they don't use it in their everyday language. Maths is a different language, so what I have to do is to get them using it as much as possible. Minus, and minus is what to plus? Opposite. Not opposite, what did I use? Inverse. Fantastic.
I think a lot of these children are taught the skills. They're taught some of the vocabulary, but they don't recall it. They perhaps don't use it as much themselves because they're fairly quiet in class. So they don't necessarily get to rehearse the use of the words in the way that other children in the same class might be doing.
Okay. Maths, as I told you the other week, is a different language. All right, this crossword is about cementing your vocabulary.
The problem of promoting use of vocabulary is obviously part of lesson planning. The fact that it's actually focused on and not glossed over.
Fractions, decimals and percentages are what type of numbers? Whole? No. They are...
At the moment we're implementing the use of revision books.
When a fraction is turned upside down. Reciprocal. How'd you spell that?
So that's a place where students can go so they can jot down their own definitions and the teachers can give further clarification.
I find adding a lot easier than taking away.
Division I've never really been able to do because it's really hard for me.
501 minus 3.
Their mental calculation skills are often quite underdeveloped. They often will resist working things out in their heads. When they're trying to explain how to do a calculation, they will quite often describe column methods rather than the most efficient way of working out a calculation.
Question 1. Answer.
116.
116, everybody get that?
Yeah.
How did you do it, Kyle?
Added both of them together.
Well, it's important for people to explain their methods because that's the way we hope to extend them, because we want to build on those methods and make them more all-encompassing methods so they can actually answer harder questions.
I would have added the 3 onto 8 and carried the 6 down, yeah? I would give them tricks using maths on how they can work things out quickly and efficiently in their heads. So it's repetition, really. Answer to number 2, then, Michaela.
Is it 35?
It certainly is. How did you do it?
When it comes to dividing and taking away, I find it quite hard.
I'm better at adding and subtracting, I think, because I just find them more easier.
Number 6.
15p.
15p. Is it 15p?
Is it 25p?
Right, this is the one I'm going to go over, okay? So we've got 50p.
There's no magic bullet for doing these things, but I think it's just being aware that maybe you're going to spend more time on subtraction than you do on addition, and maybe you're going to spend more time on division than you are on multiplication.
What I find difficult is adding the percentage to the decimal.
I find percentages okay, but I find them slightly hard because I'm not used to doing percentages. I'm used to doing all other sums.
Sometimes the answers don't go the way you think it's supposed to go.
Fractions, decimals and percentages. Okay, on here. The idea is that you match the cards, you match the 3 together and then record them in your book.
They liked to be able to get questions right, but they knew that they didn't remember very well from one lesson to the next. And they often said that, you know, even if they were coming back to a similar topic, they didn't have very good recall because they perhaps hadn't made sense of what they were doing the previous lesson.
3 times 30%. What's 60% in a fraction? 3/5, isn't it? Right, I've just got a third. Is that 3/5? I've just got a third. 3/5. Quick.
They need to have opportunities really to make sense of the mathematics that they're engaging with. They need more time to be talking about their mathematics together, to be working collaboratively.
Good idea. Work out all these and then just add 12,000 to it.
No, I'm confused. What do you need? 90%? So take 10% off that. I'm confused. Which should be 140, wouldn't it?
When I need help, I will put my hands up and ask, but sometimes when the teacher doesn't get it, I suppose I do get a little bit quiet and then I do get stuck with my work and get left behind a little bit.
Coins are 1p, so what order are 2p,
5, 10 and 20.
What we want to do is to try and put other steps in that they can take before they have to ask the teacher. So, for example, making their own revision guide as they go. So if they're given a book where they can jot down their ideas and then use talk to people on their desk or nearby, and then as a last resort then go to the teachers.
When I'm sat next to people that are my friends, not just other people, because I know that they can help me, and because I feel more comfortable next to people that I know, I suppose I get along better.
Anybody tell me what that would be?
2.
No? Something times by itself is... Chelsea?
It's 0.
No?
I worry a bit, and I should just say to myself, you can do it, and just be positive in what I do.
2. What do we call that 2?
Squared.
Squared. That's it, you're into it now.
Yeah, I very much believe of promoting a culture within the department of trying to reduce the stress on students, so therefore it allows them the space to try their best, to fail, and failure is not a crime. We often say to them, if you're going to learn to juggle, you're going to drop the balls on the floor. You know, that's all part of learning.
What you're doing is saying you can do well, and you talk to the children about what you want for them in terms of aspiration for their future, then, you know, I think it starts to become to the point where you talk them up and they start to agree with it, and hopefully they will.
Every teacher has in the classroom in front of them a range of abilities, a range of interests and a range of needs. But that doesn't mean that you have to have 30 separate teaching plans. That would be unrealistic and unfair on teachers. Most of it can be done in the well-organised everyday classroom, in the way teachers ask questions, in the way they support pupils as they go, and in the way they sensitively provide support for those children who are going to struggle with the lesson.
I've got a nice tutor, which is good, and I suppose we have a nice laugh together, and that rubs off onto the children, which are going to a good lesson and I have a good day.